Excellent. Okay. You could just all mute yourselves. That'd be great, except for Michelle and Brendan.
You may not be saying that later. You might want to mute me.
Right, thank you.
Shut up, Brenda.
There'll be plenty of time for question times, and you can unmute yourselves and you can,
Yeah, I love it.
on the
This is so
chat.
refreshing. It's usually, looking at a slide deck and doing other things. It's a nice little chat.
It is. It's going to be good.
And I'm not drinking beer, by the way. This is just a glass bottle, I promise. Although it is just gone midday where I am.
Isn't it after 10 a.m., not 12?
Oh, it's gone back, has it? I like it.
Wine time is
Well,
always after 10 a.m. Yeah, it's holiday season, anything goes. Absolutely.
yeah, I think after November, maybe it goes back to 10.
Yes. You gotta have champagne breakfast, don't you?
Most is not going to drink himself.
Yeah.
True.
All right, we'll just give people one more minute to jump on board and then we'll get cracking. Because I know people are, trying to get themselves organized and ready for Christmas break.
Yes, my email to all my clients went out yesterday to say, hey, this is coming. What are you doing? Are you closing? Are your staff taking time off? I need to
Yeah.
know this, not the last week of December. So I'm waiting for flood.
Absolutely. It is now. Give us the information so we can plan ahead for you.
And I think it's funny. We work like that, isn't it? It's timelines. Okay, Baz's are finished. Yep. Okay, what's next?
What's next? Yeah, absolutely. Because we've
What's
always
next?
got a deadline.
That's right.
Thing. All righty. So if we haven't got anyone else in the waiting room, I suppose we'll get started. So, just a quick introduction. So, we've got Brendan from Ignition. We've got Michelle, who is from her own practice as well, but she works a lot with Ignition and a lot of other places as well to better our industry, which is awesome.
Mhm.
We're just going to have basically a chat about a whole heap of topics here. So, feel free to ask your questions. As I said, we'll have question times after, we all have a chat anyway. So, feel free to ask your questions in chat or unmute yourself. We're cool with that as well. So it's all being recorded so you can come back to it if you miss something. So, Brendan, how about you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what the vision is for Ignition for 2025?
Thank you. Well, first off, thank you for having us today. It's been really nice. And I mentioned to before everyone came on, it's so nice just to have a little chat like this without like a slide deck or something distracting us. Really refreshing. So it's great to see everyone. Yeah, so we've made some decisions recently at Ignition where we've always loved bookkeepers. I actually used to be head of bookkeeping many years ago for our little app. It's grown quite a bit since then. But we've really doubled, tripled down on our love for bookkeepers recently. We've got some great new resources and tools, and most importantly, a specific bookkeeper plan now available, which I will think Brooke. I think Brooke's online there. She's going to help me out today. If you could drop that link in, why not just drop it in now so I can have a look at what's happening at Ignition with our new bookkeeper plan. And we're just going to keep developing tools and a way to support bookies in this country, especially. So yeah, watch this space. Good stuff happened already, and even better stuff coming. There it
Yeah,
is.
that's awesome. Love it. And it's great to see a new plan that, because that was a big deal in our industry was the price point. And
Mm.
now you've got this solo one and it's really going to help a lot of people. And a lot of people are signing up, which is awesome. And and so far great feedback. So that's well done, team.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's gone crazy. Like we were sort of soft launched it about maybe 6 weeks ago, and everyone's just gone nuts, which is great. It's obviously working.
Yeah, you picked the right price point and the right platform. So well done.
Yep, yep. Thank you.
All right, Michelle, introduce us to you and yeah, introduce your business and your success strategies and your story and everything for the past year.
Okay. Michelle Brisdale, Rainforest Bookkeeping. I have been very quiet this year, but I have been beating Ignition up to get this solo plan that I didn't have, just so you know.
Awesome.
Um, Knocking on that door. While I am no longer a sole practitioner, because I do have a staff member that works, that's a qualified bookkeeper, um, I remember the pain of being a sole practitioner and not having the tools that I needed. Everything is suited to accounting firms and big practices. And so while I haven't been online a lot lately, I've been working in the background trying to fight for those of us who start and have nowhere to go. So this is a real passion for me to make this happen.
Fantastic. I love it. Love it. Um, and thank you for all your work on the back end of things. And as you mentioned, you're working with the ATO and things like that as well to help us out. So thank you very much for all you're doing for the industry. We really appreciate it. So let's get into some automation tips to save time and improve efficiencies. So what are you seeing as the common workflow inefficiencies for bookkeepers that they face and how automation can help resolve them? I know that with me, it just makes time more effective if you've got systems in place, if you've got workflows in place to be able to go, right, I've knocked everything off that list. Now, what else can I do to improve what I'm doing? So, Michelle, hit us up.
When you're solo, you think you can do everything. You try to do everything. You're answering every email. You're sending out every invoice. You're in some cases touching every single receipt. And what we need to get across is that this is not okay because it's not sustainable, right? So my big thing is find a way to automate it so that you don't have to hire a lot more staff and you don't have to touch all those pieces of paper. So reduce those touch points with automation. I can go on and on and on about this one, but let's communicate here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I'm finding with a lot of people that I've been training up recently is it's all about the workflow and their inefficiencies and the tools that they're not actually using. And it's very surprising to see that there's still a lot of manual work that they're doing when there's so many tools available out there for them to do things like client onboarding, invoicing, recurring tasks, workflow management to make sure that you don't miss any of those important dates. As we mentioned, there is a lot of dates there. So what's your example for us, Michelle?
For me, I mean, I think the thing that's prohibitive for especially small bookkeepers and people
Mm,
without staff is that they think it's cost prohibitive
mm,
and they think it's just me. What do I need to set up all these workflows for? And I kind of speak to other bookkeepers the same way I speak to clients. Tell me what it would cost your plumber to enter 50 receipts.
mm.
Tell me what it's going to cost you to subscribe to something that does it for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Or your workflows, right? If you get your workflows right from the beginning and massage them, then when it's time to bring a casual or someone else in, you're ready.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And that's the thing is that a lot of people don't think that way. They're like, oh, I don't need anyone. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I really need someone. I haven't got these workflows in place. What do I do?
You freak out and you backtrack and you lose sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the biggest thing, and this is part of why I've been banging on the door to get the solo plan for a few years now,
Mm,
is because I was losing sleep over
I don't know.
doing everything in Word documents
mm.
instead of having
I'm
systems
sorry.
set
I feel
up and services set up to be
Yep.
able to send out when I got a new client. Because it would take me a good day to get all my thoughts out and to make sure I didn't miss anything. And they were still always wrong. And
Yeah.
sleep.
I found in my practice, if I didn't have everything on a
Uh-oh. On a to-do
to-do
list.
list, even just a manual to-do list, because I'm
Yep.
having off.
there was threats
Um,
of internet issues. Here we are.
but
We're good.
I've still
Sorry,
used
Kelly.
a lot of, I still use make it easier. Um, but at a glance with Trello, because I've got everything color coded as to where I'm at with each client, my team was at really quickly.
Kelly, you're cutting a
And
little
I
bit.
could, it's talking to each other through that system as well to go, okay, what's happening here? It's
Yeah.
my internet. I hate it.
And you know,
Yeah.
like
Anyway, so yeah, workflow is
I do the
awesome.
same thing. And I mean, and as a solo, I went through I went through Monday, I went through Jetpack Workflow, I went through Manualist, I went through whiteboards with color-coded markers. Finally, I moved to Expert to do my workflow tasks. But all of that is just growing and finding those ways.
Yes, absolutely. So Brendan,
Yeah.
do you have any automation tips to save time and increase efficiencies?
Yeah, well, I'll avoid the obvious, ignition. We'll talk about that, obviously. Let's put that aside for a second. I'll probably talk a bit more broadly and just agree with Michelle wholeheartedly that the excuse that a lot of people get, and I understand cost is prohibitive when it comes to using apps, but the excuse that a lot of people like to bring in is it's like I said, it's just me. But to me, that's actually an even more reason to build efficiencies. Because for two reasons, if you don't do it now, you'll probably never do it properly. You've got a great opportunity now as you're smaller and you're a solo operator. But also, if you're the one that's doing this stuff, you're the one who's charging for billable hours for everything you do. Why are you wasting your billable hours doing admin stuff that can be automated? Your billable hours should be spent with you and your wonderful clients and growing your business, not chasing invoices, creating invoices, doing all that kind of stuff. So
Great.
that's my I guess that's my tip. It's a bit broader than common
Yep.
efficiencies, but think about any efficiency in that regard is if you are doing it yourself and you're the business owner, especially, have a think about it from that
Easy
perspective. I think,
one.
Michelle, I'm getting big nods from you and even
Oh, big
shaking
nods
head
from
in
me.
agreement.
I mean, I can't, I'm not a plumber. I can't
Yeah.
fix my pipes, So,
Mm.
I'm the expert. And even if you're just starting out, in reality, you're the expert over your client because your client isn't training in this every day and every hour and keeping up with all the compliance things. So you need to put your hat on that says, yep, I'm the expert in this. I'm the expert in bookkeeping for your business.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Exactly. And that's why
and
they come to you, right? Like they wouldn't come to you if they were doing it themselves, then A, they're not going to be doing it very well, I can guarantee it. And B, it just shows that they're not interested, but they're coming to you for
Yeah.
this solution. And that's one thing that I talk to all of our Ignition customers when they first start using Ignition. It's like, I'm a little bit worried about just sending out this proposal. But you're the expert. They're actually coming to you because they don't know how to do it. Just tell them how to do it. And they'll go with it most times. If they don't, then that's a red flag.
yep.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, Kelly, I think you're still a bit
A
choppy. So
little bit.
I might just push through into the next bit if that's okay. Good to see you, John. I'll get your camera on. How are you, mate? Leave it on. I love it. Another face here. Um, so we've gone through sort of automation tips to save time and increase efficiency. Michelle, were there any other examples that you use in particular? I mean, feel free to give us a
Yep.
list of things. Maybe there's two or three that you love.
Well, I mean, for me, especially as a solo, like XBM is overkill for me. And so I really didn't need that. Whereas using Zero, I get Zero projects for free. So I can track where my time sucks are. I can track how much time I'm spending on payroll or BASs or, talking to the clients for those quick chats. So I can, whether I build that time or not from that, I can tell where my time sucks are to see where my inefficiencies are. And that for me is critical because I'm my own worst enemy with, talking to clients about the weather. So, where's that time suck? And the other thing is when you start growing and you get more clients, you have more data, and data integrity is the key. You need somebody to check those GST registrations every hour because I'm going to check it once. I can't manage checking it in the same time periods that something like Expert does. Or I know Dext has one. Dext, I don't even know what it is. Sorry, I use Dext, but I don't use their next thing. Whatever it is, I can't remember anyway. So
Nice.
just find out where the time sucks are to find out where your automation needs to start. For me, it was receipt capture, receipt capture, receipt capture, receipt capture. And I don't have any filing cabinets in my whole office because of it.
Love that. Excellent. Kelly, I'm not sure if you're back online with us, but I might just move on and take us through to the next bit. Let's talk about client engagement and compliance. And if you
Awesome. Yeah, no
if you're
problem.
not pretty obvious, that's where some of my expertise lies, being at Ignition for about 10 years now. Now, obviously, we've just spoke about efficiencies, and that's all good and well. But a big part of, before you get to the efficiencies is obviously dealing with your clients, engaging them, managing the compliance side of thing. And a big part of course, is communication with your clients. Michelle, what's communication to you? What's your definition of communication with clients? How do you do it well? How have you not done it so well in the past, potentially as well?
Believe me, I've made all the mistakes. I mean, as you do.
Tell
And
us
so
about them.
that's it. That's what I'm, okay. So, and that's really what I'm trying to do is help others not make the same mistakes that I made, because they're painful. I'd lose too much sleep. So the big thing is I didn't set the expectations from the start. And that is critical to me, because the engagement letter to me is about what is the client responsible for and what are you responsible for. And if you haven't set that out, then all of a sudden you have 1,000 things that the client thinks you're going to do, but you haven't communicated that. And that's a massive, massive downfall with new engagements. So I have this amazing story that I love to tell, and it's a reasonably new client. I sat down with a client for initial meeting, and it's not an industry I normally would have taken on, but the lady that introduced me to my husband on a blind date asked me to speak with him. And so I kind of felt like I had to, right? Her batting average is pretty good. So this client sat down with me at this cafe in Narrabeen, and he came with 3 LibreArch files and spreadsheets like you would not believe. And I broke out in a sweat. And I sat there and thought, okay. And I said to him, so tell me what you want me to do. And he told me all of these things. And I started packing my things up. And he says, what are you doing? And I said, well, if that's what you want me to do, I'm not your person. I can't help you. And he packs everything up. And I thought he was going to leave, but he didn't. He sat down and said, tell me how you would do what I need done. So instantly we communicated between each other for me to say, I can't work your way. But I can work my way to make things better, because he obviously wasn't happy with the way that things were being done.
Yeah,
Ask the right
that's what
question.
we said last time. Like you just mentioned before, and this is the second part of this conversation, but it's the same as before. Like they're coming to you for a reason. You're the expert. They're going to put their trust in you. And even then, you literally try to push them away, and you're still like, well, clearly I can see that you've built some efficiencies. You've got a great way of working. And who I was working with before, whether it's themselves or somebody else, just was not working out at all. So let's flip it on its head. Let's give it a shot. And you're driving the conversation. And I think you're right that client engagement is that really important piece. Gone are the days of that just becoming a thing that you need to do and it's annoying. It's now becoming a tool for you to set the scene, for you to set the rules, and let them know this is how we do things. And if you're not willing to do this, and it's a hard thing to do, right? It's a hard thing to say no to a
It's
client, especially if you're a small business.
when you're starting, it's a confidence, but that's why when you get organized, you know what you can do. You know that if I don't
Mm.
want to touch spreadsheets and I decide to take on this client that is all based on spreadsheets and isn't willing to change, we're not going to meet in the middle.
Mm. Exactly. Exactly. Um, so yeah, that's obviously my bread and butter is compliance around onboarding and client engagement and that kind of thing. And that's you couldn't have said it better myself. Like one thing I've seen over the years is um, people who are coming on board seeing Ignition as like a just a tool to get proposals signed and get, do all the legal bric-a-brac. But then we've kind of lead into them understanding the importance of clearly outlining the scope and deliverables for a new client, but then also the importance of maintaining that, because it's all good and well to get a document signed and then not touch it for 5 to 10 years. That's unhelpful, because there's a good chance in a couple of years you're going to blow out on the scope. You're going to be charging the same amount per month or whatever it is, per week, whatever, that you were when you started work with them, and their business has grown exponentially, and you haven't caught up with them. So, what are your best practices for regular check-ins, and making sure that these agreements are still covering everything that needs to be covered?
So what I recommend doing is, when you do your engagement letter, go to your association and, get all their terms and conditions and all those things that you have to make sure that you have. And that's great. But at the start of your engagement letter, set out, this is what I will agree to do. This is what you are responsible for. Bullet point it, make it clear. Don't bury it in text. Make it really clear so that everyone knows that you're on this, that you're on the same page. And then, when you get down the line, you may say, right, we can add on this, or we can do this, or I can look after your TPARs or your long service leave or your workers' comp, and tell them about all the things that they didn't know that you could do, or in some cases I found they didn't know they needed to be doing. Which happens. So every year I run my reports from Zero Projects to see what I'm doing, where my time stocks, how much out of scope, and I re-engage. So my engagement letter says that it starts from this day and it continues forever, basically, but I still re-engage every single year to say, all right, look, this has changed. And I also put in there every year that you will have a minimum of 3% cost of living increase, minimum. But it's just so that you look at what you've done, you look at where the client's going, and you look to make sure they haven't outgrown what you quoted last year. Because how many of us have sole traders all of a sudden their companies, and then they have trust in this and they've added this, but that's not in our engagement letter.
Oh, you're speaking my language.
Like,
I think Kelly, you're back on. I'm going to throw to you in a second, if your internet's okay. But yeah, one thing I'm going to say, and this is something I've noticed with working with bookkeepers for many years now.
Yep.
You're all so freaking lovely, which is awesome. But I
too
think
nice,
a
did you say?
negative.
Too nice?
It's the negative side of that is sometimes you're afraid to set boundaries. You're afraid to
Often.
have those conversations with your clients, especially on a regular basis. But I think having a really robust engagement process with a renewal sort of process built in, and that's just expected, plus that 3%. Shout out to just a very, very shameless plug. We have a tool in Ignition where you can actually raise your fees by a percentage each year. So if you're doing that minimum 3% each year, then we can actually build that in and part of your agreement. And that's just non-negotiable. It's just the way it is. So yeah, Kelly, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you're
Yep.
online there.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you can at the
Okay,
moment.
cool. I can hear you all. I just, yeah, for some reason everything's glitching in here. Yeah, look, client engagements is such you have to do it every year. You have to update. The legalities are
Kelly,
often
maybe
changing
turn your
for
camera
us,
off.
especially with these new laws that have just come in. Yeah. Yeah, with these new laws come in, we need to make sure that we've got enough information in our client engagement letters to make sure that we're up to date with what is required and what they need us to do. Because we are getting more strict rules coming through. So we really need to make sure that we're on top of that. And our engagement letter, doing that every year, make sure that we're on top of our obligations as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the engagement letter is so much more than just a bit of compliance. And again, it's something that's ever changing, ever evolving. I think every year I've been in Ignition, there's been some sort of update to your engagement letters across different industries. So that's really good to hear from you, Kelly, on that. Appreciate it.
Yep.
I'll just add that as using Ignition on the solo plan, what's great is that you then define your services so that you know what you can and can't do. And then there's nothing that slips in there that the client thinks that you might do, but you really don't. And then when you go to re-engage every year, yes, you can do that across the board increase, or you can just look at your services and see where you need to change those individual services as well.
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah. Yep.
definitely.
There's something really powerful about having like if you struggle, and I'm like this. I'm a people pleaser. I really
Mm.
struggle having difficult conversations, especially with customers. But if you've got something in place that's like almost like a service menu, it's like these I can't change this. It's like you
Mm.
don't walk into Macca's and go, I'll give you $2 for that Big Mac. Like, no, it's $6. Like, nah, sorry, it's just the way it is. This is my
Mm.
service pricing. This is my menu. And this is what's going to happen every year, and this is how it's going to be. So, yeah, if you're
Mm.
struggling with those conversations, then having like again that robust engagement process with clearly defined deliverables and the associated costs to the client is huge.
And coming back to that initial communication, like, you know, some clients will sit down and say, what are your charges? I never answer that question because I can't answer that question until I know what they're looking for. What do they need me to do? Once I know exactly what they need me to do, then easy, I can quote that. I can do that whether it's a fixed or I work on a fixed hybrid. So I have, you know, set
Love
amounts for
it.
certain tasks. But you can't answer that question, how much are you?
Yeah,
No, definitely not.
Mm,
cool.
okay.
Love that. Let's move on to okay. This is actually my favorite topic. Cash flow, getting paid, payments,
That was a
reducing
good
debts.
segue, wasn't it?
It was actually. Um, this is probably this is the not even the icing on the cake. It's the foundation of the cake, right? Like
Mm.
if you've got efficiency built into your practice, if you have a great engagement process, you're letting your clients know that you're tough and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how I want you to work with me, and this is what I want you not to do. It doesn't matter if you're not getting paid for it, and the best way to do that is to set up some sort of automation there as well. So. In terms of like you just mentioned, yeah, you mentioned the hybrid model there, fixed, maybe hourly. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on that, Michelle, for us in terms of what your process is and how you came to the decision to run that kind of model?
So, especially starting, you don't know what clients are going to need, whether they're big clients, small clients. All my clients are micro clients. So I have what's called a 90-day getting to know you period. So I work on an hourly basis for 90 days. And that way I know exactly after it's like a relationship. You know, the first month is bliss. The second month, you start noticing those annoying things. The third month, you start complaining about it. So you cannot hide things for more than 90 days. It's through every single point in life. And I'm the mother of 4 kiddos. So I've seen these 30 days, these 90 days work. Um, so what I found is that, you know, I set yes, kidults, Brooke. I set, you know, I do a minimum of 1 hour billing for pay runs. If it may take me 7 minutes, but it's taken me 28 years to learn everything that I know about payroll. Okay, for an IAS, it's 1 hour minimum, and you know, and then a BAS is minimum of a 3 hour charge. So like if I'm going to do just a BAS for somebody, they're going to pay $450 for it, regardless of how long it takes me, because that's the way that I work. Because otherwise, the expectation is if it's cheap, it's not good, right? So you're discounting yourself and all of your experience. And I worked bloody hard to get where I am to, you know, charge somebody $60 to do a BAS. Like I'm not doing it. So sorry. Um, you know, and the other thing is like, so I talked to a very well-known bookkeeper yesterday, and she doesn't have something that says, you know, for those quick chats that turn into 5 hours work. So for me to book in with a new client, you've got to go to my Calendly and click on the link, and it tells you that I will speak to you as a new client for X amount of minutes or whatever it is. But after that, you're going to pay me. She's got 5 hours that she has never billed to this person who has never signed an engagement letter. She can't bill it. She can't get the money. She gets nothing out of it. And now the client, way 5 hours. I'm
No,
not doing that.
no. That's picking our information without having to pay for it, and that's, something I try and avoid in my groups because they are so large, and business owners try and get in there on a regular basis, almost daily basis, to basically pick our brains for a job that they do, but they haven't got the qualifications, they haven't got the experience that we do, and they're just going to get lost in the group anyway.
Let's talk about Tradie Wives. Who's
Oh,
giving you all that free knowledge in Tradie Wives? And a lot of it is
and some of it's wrong.
so.
I love that, Michelle, around and this is something that's really easily overlooked is yeah, your essentially your IP is your experience, right?
Yes.
And it'd be like Microsoft developing a new Windows. Can you still hear me? My headphones just died. It'd be like Microsoft developing new Windows and then charging just for like the price of the CD. Like it's just ridiculous, right? They
Yes.
wouldn't do that. They've spent billions developing this platform. Probably a bad example. Microsoft Windows is probably going to be terrible always. But pretend that was a good example. But you know what I mean? Like it's really good to hear and refreshing to hear someone like you say, yeah, this is just how much I charge. Like, yeah, it may have taken me 7 minutes, but it's taken me, 10 years plus to figure out how to do it this well.
It
And
has. So the
Yeah.
thing is, so, and I'm not sure if it's available on the solo plan, but I think it is. So where we're going down this path is one of the things that was the bane of my existence. We know how much money the clients have. Why are we not putting them on direct debit so that we get paid? And why
Hmm.
are we putting them set? I'm seeing 14 to 30 days for us to get paid. I don't think so.
Mhm.
We're supposed to get a signature and then lodge a BAS within say a couple days. They should pay us within a few days. My payment terms are 3 days. I
Mm.
don't, I'm not carrying anybody else's cash flow. I'm a small business, they're a small business. So there's no 30 days payment. So, and I do bill them my fees. If I get, I on charge any fees that they pay, because if they want to pay by direct debit and pay through the bank, that's great. I'm fine with taking in those fees. But as far as if they want to pay on their Amex to get points to go overseas, then they're going to pay for that. And I don't apologize for that because they have a choice. They can pay me direct. But changing to direct debits for all of my clients means my cash flow is great. So I can then advise my clients how to get their cash flow great.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because you've learnt from experience and you learnt from automating the system and, making sure that you're getting paid to do what you've done, and that's hard for a lot of people to set up or to have that conversation. And I did it long way down the track. So I was in practice for 15 years. And so when I did it, all the clients have been hourly based for, years. Trying to get them over to a direct debit system was near impossible for me. But if you start off from your newest clients, start from there by doing the direct debit. You can set it up through things like Ignition. You can set it up through, there's a whole heap of options for you, and you can pass those fees on to the client so you're not out of pocket. But it definitely helps that weekly cash flow or that fortnightly cash flow to go, I've got that money coming in. I know that I can pay XYZ for my subscriptions, for my insurance, for my stuff. And if anyone, tells you, oh, well, why are you charging $75, $85 an hour? Well, that's because I have the 20 odd years of experience. That's because I have the qualifications. That's because I've done rescue work for the last 15 years and I know all of the pain points that you could probably throw at me. So that's why you're paying the higher rate. You want consulting? Great. We'll add that in, but that's going to be an extra, $150, $200. No problem. But you're basing it, you've got to look at your expertise and go, right, I deserve a decent cash flow as much as they do.
So making it easy. So especially starting out when you have smaller clients. So make it easy for them. So my original clients were all tradies. They didn't want to get a bill for $300 for a week.
Mm,
They didn't want to get say $1,000 bill for a month, but they were okay to get a 300 for a week or a 500 for a fortnight. So bill
mm.
them more. So I set up originally I was using Go Cardless. So I think I started with Stripe and then I went to Go Cardless and then I'm back to Ignition because they're all speaking my language now and letting me pass on my fees and do the things that I want to do. So we've been working on that too.
We
But
got there.
bill them more, bill them every, have it. I set up in Zero. I set up so repeating invoices in drafts so that it automatically creates the invoices in drafts and reminds me when I need to invoice my clients. So that way they don't, if they're happy to pay fortnightly, I'm happy to take the money fortnightly. You don't
Absolutely. And it makes it easier on them too, because then they know that they're not getting that big bill and they're not trying to pull that big bill together. It's like this
Yeah.
whole payday super thing. Everyone's like up in arms, like, oh my God, how am I going to manage my cash flow? Well, seriously, look
It's
at
not
your
your
cash
money.
flow. It's not your money. You should be paying it as payday super, and it does make it a lot easier not finding that big bulk amount at the end of each quarter. So,
Okay.
yeah, you've just kind of got to look at it from that perspective
And
too.
the thing is too, once you start billing fortnightly or, and putting them on a direct debit so that it automatically, takes their money within 3 days, like you might not get it for 5, but they do it in 3. Then when you decide to move to a fixed model or a package model or a hybrid model, it's really simple because they're not going to freak out because all of a sudden they're paying $1,500 for a month because
Mm,
you've gotten them into good practices with your
yes.
debits and with your continuous billing. So they actually kind of like not getting a bill after a while. They like
Mm.
not getting a bill every week or fortnight. They like paying monthly. But by then they're mature enough and you're mature enough to change.
Yeah, and it also helps them identify that maybe they should set up a direct debit for other services that are provided to them to make it easier. So it's not only great for us, but it's also really great for our clients to learn that process and that system as well.
A lot of my clients have started setting up direct debits with their clients.
Yeah, nice, nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear there's so much discussion these days around making sure that you get paid. There is a question there from Kylie. Thank you, Kylie. Just asking specifically how do you set up direct debit for clients? I might just take that. If you're talking about Ignition specifically, I'm happy just to give you the minute 1 minute quick one. We talked about engagement letters, we talked about proposals and compliance. When the proposal is sent to the client, the client will open the proposal. It's all online. They'll see the full scope of the services. They'll see what's included, what's not included. They'll see the actual pricing or schedule page. And then there's an extra step where they can actually add their direct debit details or credit card, depending on what you prefer to offer, when they accept the proposal. So a lot of other sort of payment providers will kind of come in after the proposal's been accepted and then say, okay, now that you've accepted your proposal, let's get some payment details from you. We kind of combine it all in one. And the beauty of that is, as we discussed earlier, when you enter this sort of annual renewal review process, you've already got the client's payment details. So next year they re-sign, or anytime there's any sort of scope change or change to services, their payment details are stored securely within Ignition, and then that just automatically clicks over to the new higher fee or the new 3% increase for the following year. So it's a really nice kind of way to cap off all of your automation and all your compliance through the engagement letter and the proposal itself. So yeah,
Direct debit's
specifically.
really easy to set up in Ignition because the client actually puts their details in.
Mm.
So that makes it really simple. But you have an option that, like, so when I set out my engagement letters, I have different sections. So I have a section for my monthly recurring, and then I have a section for my one-off. So I have so if it's a one-off TPAR or one-off this or whatever, or my Dex subscription that I don't carry Dex subscriptions. I unbill them to clients. I don't carry zero subscriptions because I don't make enough money on them anyway. If the prices go up, I don't really care. They can deal with them and with zero
Absolutely.
do that. But just don't be afraid to say I require payment on acceptance. So say you're going to do a job that's a zero health check or a migrate from one company to another. Get payment up front. I'm doing a rescue at the moment and I do 10-hour blocks. And so what I quote them $2,000 to do 10 hours work. And then once that's gone, we bill again, or I don't work anymore. And so that way you're getting prepaid for all that time investigating that you're doing because the 10 hours goes ridiculously quickly.
Oh, so incredibly quickly. And I've had rescue jobs in like mild that the client ended up paying me like 10 grand because it was like just an absolute disaster. And then other ones in zero, which, were 5 years of data coming in. So, that takes a lot of time. And that was another, multiple thousands of dollars worth of work. So always
Yeah, I
get that
wouldn't do
payment
that.
up front.
5 years coming in, no, I'm a firm believer that you draw a line in the sand at a certain year and you do not take rubbish into a new program. So I mean, I've had cases where I've had 10 years of data and $1 million clearing accounts in a previous product. I do not bring any of that in.
No, no.
Line and I start fresh.
Well, that's what I did, and that was 5 years fresh because they didn't have an accounting system. They hadn't done a BAS, they hadn't done a tax return, none of it for 5 years. So yeah,
Wow.
it was from scratch. But I agree, you do have to draw a line in the sand and just go, right, I'm doing from the 1st of July this financial year. Anything else the accountant can deal with, and they can give me the opening balances. So yeah, definitely.
But again, you're the expert.
Yes,
The client thinks they need all that old data. You know you don't.
that's
They
right.
can access it. You know you're the expert. You don't need to bring rubbish in.
Yeah.
Love it. There's so many sound bites. I think, Brooke, when we get off this call, we should just like capture some of these great quotes and maybe send them out as a while. It's been fantastic. I can see Kylie writing down furiously as well. Thanks. I can see you there. That's awesome. Just one thing to add in terms of Ignition as well. If you aren't confident in going for the whole thing up front, we do deposits as well. So you can do like a 50% up front and then 50% when the work is done. So that for those clients that aren't as comfortable. The other thing is, and I've seen this happen. I've been doing this for 10 years. Don't be afraid to just ask for payment in general. Like you're not
Mm.
going to rock the boat. I don't know how many, I've lost count of how many practices have joined Ignition and said, oh, I'm a little bit scared to ask for payment. Even if it's payment on completion, just getting the payment details in the system, just do it. If anyone doesn't want to do that, then it's a red flag in my eyes and you don't want to be working with them anyway. Get rid of them.
Oh gosh, I could not agree more. You
Yeah.
have to set the tone from the beginning, and you have to set the tone that I'm the expert, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to get paid for it, or you can walk away. And you know, looking at our agenda, this actually leads directly into our next. I'm really good getting good at
Keep
these
doing
segues.
this. It's almost like
Oh my
we're,
God.
practiced. We actually didn't practice, just by the way.
We
We
didn't
didn't.
actually practice. It was off the cuff. So then we were gonna, and I did want to mention that you also have instant bill. So if you do work and you need to bill it straight away, or you're about to do work and you need to bill it straight away before you start, you can just instant bill it without having to deal with setting up an engagement letter. You can just say, right, this is the work I'm going to do. Off you go. Pay me, then I'll start.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
That is liberating.
oh, it's amazing. I think
Oh,
it's
it is.
came out earlier this year and it's gone off. I don't know what the stats are. I don't know if you know, Brooke, but Instant Bill has just gone crazy in terms of usage. Everyone's loving it because they can just get paid straight away without having to sort of, guess if they're going to get paid for the work that you're about to do them because it's always urgent, right? If it's urgent,
Always,
pay
Hmm.
me.
always.
Yeah.
So our next thing was about, yeah, what do we do to filter out bad clients? It doesn't say that. It says potential clients to ensure they're the right fit for your business.
Quality. Quality though is the word, Michelle. Quality.
Yeah, I think Michelle wants to
Find
say some other
quality,
choice
not the
words, but
same.
we'll go with quality.
I mean, I do not take every client.
No.
I know the industries that I'm good at, and I know that I cannot be the expert in every single industry. It's not possible. And I mean, I think I know everything. I know I don't know everything. I know everything about a few things, but I deal with e-commerce, I deal with trades and construction, I deal with I have a whole raft of business coaches for some strange reason. I don't know why. And I have psychologists, but I don't do shads, I don't do hospitality, I don't do
Mm.
medical.
Yep. I don't do
And
cafes or real estate or lawyers.
And those of you that do, I take my hat off to you, and
Yes.
please reach out because they're the people that I want to give you those clients. I'm not going to take them.
Me neither.
So, yeah. But, there's enough of us. Actually, there's not enough. We need a lot more bookkeepers. And if people knew, I don't want to go on this tangent, but if people knew how much our work is automation and AI and relationships more than numbers,
Mm.
we'd have a lot more bookkeepers. Numbers are not my thing, but processes and apps, that's where I love. That's where I thrive, right?
It's
So,
Yep.
like almost full circle back to one of our first points around automating it all and just, yeah, that's great. There's just staying on the client thing. Obviously you know what you know who you told who you don't work with.
Mm.
Do you have any, Kelly or Michelle, do you have any specific marketing that you've put out either now or in the past to attract certain types of clients?
my
Nothing
website is
specific.
my website's very tailored to micro businesses and tradies. you know, because it's all about, you know, you don't know what you, I mean, if I need to write a blog about all the tradies that just get their girlfriends to do their books because they're home doing nothing else. I could write a whole book, and that's a big thing. You know, just because you're somebody's partner doesn't mean you know how to do what we do.
But that's how I started, Michelle.
Me too. I saved 6 marriages with my first clients.
Yeah, my husband was my first client. Oh my God, how funny.
My husband was my first client, and now he's still a client because he's a hairdresser and we run a hairdressing business. And that's
Nice.
where I learned all about apprentices and about retail and about what I don't want to do with staff. And so, you know, you do have to come from somewhere, but
Mm.
I already had I already had some background in business before I did that. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when you're looking at your marketing, if you want to niche, then you really need to target those that you want to niche with, and make sure that you've got everything that is, about that niche and understanding what their pain points are so that you can give them a solution or say, we have multiple solutions for you, but giving examples and things like that, especially when you're marketing to niche clients.
Can I make a suggestion as well there? If you're going to
Yep.
niche, then you should be charging even more for your services because you're exactly who they're looking for and you're going to be working directly with their industry and there's nobody else that does this better than you.
And you're not
Really
having to
expert.
learn what you're not, there's no learning curve because you're already in that industry.
Yes.
So you can actually guide your clients who are just starting out in plumbing because you've been doing it for a long time. So, you know, you really are that much of an expert. And on the other thing is, your clients are your best marketing. Every single client you have, you need to ask them, tell them, look, I'm ready to have some new clients. Do you have anyone you can recommend? Please tell everyone. And the thing is, what's so great about that? Because out of all of my clients, 90% were referred by other clients. It's all word of mouth. If you piss one off, you piss them all off. They all know about it. So, you do have to be careful there.
That is true.
It is true. But the thing is that if you don't ask your clients to recommend you, why would they? They don't want to think, it's like recommending a doctor. Oh, they might not like them, but they've also sold you. So they know how mean you are and how rigid you are with compliance. Like if I don't get a receipt for, that $800 meal, you are not claiming it.
Yes,
They already know that. I don't just know
absolutely.
that.
Let's push on here just to get some practical stuff. Oh, actually, there's one I wanted to just mention. I'm going to take this one for myself. I'm going to say the same thing I said before. I wanted to ask quickly about red flags to watch when onboarding new clients. I was going to say the same thing I said before, which is if they're not willing to put their money where their mouth is, then just be aware.
If they ask you what your
say
price
no,
is
but
first,
yeah.
Generally a red flag. Absolutely. That is, yeah. And if they say that they've had like quite a few bookkeepers and accountants that just don't understand them, well, one, maybe, two, possibly, but anything more than that, no, no, it's the client, it's the problem.
Mhm.
so even with my staff member, like, and this is the way that I have always wanted to be treated, is that my business and my clients, it's not dollar based, it's not hour based. If they're here at 9:05, I don't care. If they're here at 1 o'clock, I don't care. All I care about is the results. So what I'm trying to do is I'm getting the clients to understand that this relationship is based on results, not time spent.
Yep,
Right? So it's
absolutely.
flipping it around when they ask me how much do I charge, and I say, okay, let's talk about this. Tell me what you want to get. Tell me the results you're looking for, and we'll make a path to get there.
Excellent. Um, I'm going to move into let's move into the last bit. Kelly, I'm going to hand back to you shortly, because I think you wanted to get some questions in for us.
Yeah.
Um, let's just recap those last couple of things that we've spoken about. Michelle, if there's like one, two, three things that you would recommend that Kylie definitely underlines and takes away and can action immediately, what would some of those things be from today's topics?
Don't rely on Word to do your engagement letters. Get organized, get on the solo plan, start like you want to finish. And this isn't a sell, this is getting so that you can sleep at night because
Mm.
you've everything out. That's number one for me. And in the same vein of that is get your services in order. Your pricing doesn't have to be the same for everybody, but when you get your services in order, then you'll get your workflows in order. And once you do that, then you'll set up your direct debit. So it's a three-pronged approach to getting where you need to be from the very start.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Kelly, what's your tips? What's your highlights?
Um, yeah, I'm a big fan of systems and getting the right systems in place, not only for workflow and onboarding, but also for your own cash flow. Once you've got the right system in place, then you'll find that, oh my God, I can take a week off and it's not going to be detrimental to my financial abilities. So those are probably my key ones is embrace the technology that's available to you because it can make your life a lot more, easier to say, because we're supposed to have a spare BAS agent to hand off to if we need to go away or do whatever.
Mm.
So at least it'll make it easier for when you're sharing that information with another BAS agent who needs to take on your work, even just for a short time. So systems, workflows, onboarding, it's all really important to have those in place as you move forward.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a finished product.
No.
Like even still today, my workflows are fluid because as we get some new automation, it's going to change my workflow. So all you really need to do is start with, all right, I'm going to do payroll today. And as you're doing it, start the list of every single thing you have to do as if you're telling someone that's not you.
Mm,
That's all you have to do to get started. And somebody else's workflow isn't going to work for you. It
exactly.
might, but it's probably not.
Yeah, all those blueprints of here's how you exactly do
Give
it.
me
Does
10
not,
grand, I'll give you mine. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
no.
Doesn't work.
Individualized, thank you.
Well,
Um,
let's the I guess one takeaway from there for me is that last bit is if you do looking to implement any sort of technology, then make sure you reach out for resources from the actual app provider. With the solar plan, we give you a whole bunch of resources, some videos, some training modules that you can go through and show you how to set it all up. It's actually really easy to set up, and you'll be surprised how quickly you're already getting a few of your clients on automatic payment. Maybe even do like Michelle, like do a couple of proposals for 3 months for new clients, and before you know it, you're up and running, and you can take that 1 week off, and you're still going to get paid because that's how you've set it up, which is great. I think Brooke, you mentioned something about summer there. Summer's coming, so just get it all in line. Chase the sun, not the payments. I love it. Another quote.
Yeah.
Cool. I think Kelly, I'm going to head back to you in the last sort of 7 minutes we have.
yeah.
A couple of Q&A bits and pieces.
Yeah, so I'm just going to skip through some of this stuff because we've pretty much covered all the interactive stuff. So that's all cool. But one of the questions I'd love to see or discuss is what's one thing, how do you see the bookkeeping industry evolving over the next 5 years? I think that's a huge one because I know that, with all the new legislation changes and the more compliance that we have to do, I know that it is changing significantly, and a lot of people are going to leave the game as well. So, what do you see in the next 5 years of the industry from your point of view, Brendan?
I think you kind of answered a little bit already for me. I see the role of bookkeepers becoming even more important when it comes to the constantly evolving compliance and just all the dots, the I's that need to be dotted and T's that needed to be crossed. I just see that becoming a really important job for bookkeepers.
Yes.
And yeah, as a result, everyone sort of needs to keep up and make sure that they're on top of all those legislation changes. I also see I don't know. I see bookkeepers almost, and I've known this for a while actually. I see bookkeepers driving a lot of the tech adoption, um,
Mm,
even though you've got your accounting firms and a lot of these, but I actually see the bookies are the ones that are really determining, hence our solo plan and everything we're building around that, determining what really needs to be automated and what needs to be built in our industry to make your life easier. So I see technology being driven from bookkeepers quite a lot. So we're listening and we're loving the journey so far.
So I went to Nashville with Zero and I got to see even though I'm originally from there, I've lived here longer than I ever lived there. I got to see the accounting and bookkeeping industry from a totally different perspective. They all call themselves accountants, but the bookkeepers are same as the BAS agents. They do sales tax and they do payroll. They are a decade behind us because of automation. We are pushing and asking for more. We are telling them it's not good enough that I have to have 3 products to do 3 different tasks. I want things to link and integrate. So, they are pushing hard. And even the ATO, so I sit on the BASAG group, BAS Agents Advisory Group for the ATO, they finally understand that we have 1,000 times more touch points than the accountants do with small businesses.
Yes.
We're starting to listen and understand what we're seeing on a daily basis. Why a builder can't come off a work site and add you on client agent linking.
Yeah.
It's not possible. So
No.
yeah, it's changing, but they're really starting to listen to what BAS agents and bookkeepers are saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to take time. That's for sure. So another one was, so I suppose this is for the audience. Let's get into those questions because that's what I really want to know. So to the audience, what's your biggest challenge in streamlining your workflows right now? Put it in the chat or you can unmute. It's entirely up to you. So what's your biggest challenge in streamlining workflows right now?
Probably go on, Kylie.
I know.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah, Kylie.
I think so. I am an employee. It is I work for my uncle, who is a tax agent, and I do the bookkeeping kind of by default. And then I've just done my certificate training, and he wants to be everybody's friend. Is what I find is the biggest problem. Is that we live in urban fringe, so it is very community based, and he's worried about upsetting people, and I just find that, and I, previous to having children, and my children are now teenagers, but I worked in big corporate. They got no friends, so they don't care.
They don't care.
And so I'm like, with different things, my corporate background would say, but that's not how you do it. Why would you want to do it that way? You're not making any money. What do you want to? And he's like, yes, but I have a community and people think highly of me. And I'm like, yeah, but so, and that's what I find is the biggest thing, is that he's too friendly with people. And there is it all comes from a place of fear instead of a place of worth.
My response to clients is the same thing I say to all my kiddos. Yes, you can do that, but this is what's going to happen. So I'm not constantly saying no. I'm just saying about, that's great that you want to do that. But in my expertise, this is the way that we're going to go down the path. And if they don't like it, well, that's okay. You've given them the option. You haven't said no. You said, we can do that, but this is the result I've seen. So it's kind of flipping it rather than being negative about it. I don't really care if I'm anybody's. How many times have you said to your kids, you can hate me, I'm not your friend, I'm your mother?
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with clients. They're paying you and they're bringing you on board to tell them what they don't know. So stick to your guns.
Absolutely. So Jackie's just said, knowing if my current workflow procedures that I have in place are effective, or is there another way of doing things? I feel organized, but who knows? Yeah, that's something I was actually going to get into is, what tools are you currently using for automation? If so, what ones? And how's your experience been with them? Because, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for somebody else. Like, I tried Carbon. That doesn't work for me because it's all letters and all that. Like, it's just text. I can't do text. I need colors. And so that's why I always go back to Trello. So, it's understanding what works for you, not what works for everyone else. But we'd love to hear what you're using and, why you like it. That would be awesome.
And Jackie, if you feel organized, that's fantastic. I mean, like Kelly and I are both a little bit OCD plus, and you know, we have to have checklists for everything. But what I suggest you do is get your checklist. And then the next time you do it, follow the checklist and see, are there places that you're spending way too much time? Are there places where you haven't answered that question? You don't have to go looking for more ways to get organized, but give it to somebody else to look at and just ask the question.
Absolutely. There's no harm in asking for somebody else's opinion to see if you've missed anything. Like, I mean, I've got all my checklists for sale up on the website, but you know, if I've missed something, I'd rather somebody tell me I've missed something so I can add it in there for the next people or update it for the people who have already bought it. So definitely, check on those things and make sure that you're auditing them on a regular basis to make sure that you've got everything that you need. Yeah, things like DocuSign and Asana, you can get a lot of those things, options. But if that's working for you, fantastic. That's
And
awesome.
starting out for me, those were way too cost prohibitive for a one-person solo
Yes.
person. So for me, Carbon, Asana, Trello, way too much for one person, which is why I started using Zero Projects and then later went to Expert because
Mm.
you know, a lot of them, they want to sell everything to three-person practices. I don't have a three-person practice.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly. We've already gone through overdue invoices and payments from our perspective, but just a very quick one. What are you all using to manage your overdue invoices, or the difficult payment conversations with clients?
number one, get direct debits, and then you don't have an issue. Number
Yes.
two, I do send out and I use reminders on my invoices because that's automation. And I don't use the canned response. I put in my own response. Run it through ChatGPT and ask emojis if you like, but find a way to do it so that it's not just a canned response. And then if I don't get paid, then I send it directly to payment collector. I do not hesitate in sending because I know how much money they have and I stop work. Don't do any more work.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So, Brendan, you have a question. Can you explain the difference between the solo plan and the next plan up, which is core?
Yeah, I'm just going to drop in the overall pricing page into the chat, which is kind of has everything. The main thing you're going to be interested in there is the active client limit. So if you're working with up to 20 clients, the solo plan is good for you. You can actually flex that a little bit if you go over.
Mm-hmm.
The core plan, the next one up, is an active client limit of 50 clients. There's a few more bits and pieces there, like bulk proposal creation and generally things that aren't really working for smaller businesses anyway. We kind of remove those from the solo plan. But yeah, like I said, start a trial, have a play around with it. We can reach out to you and have a chat and see if it's the right fit for you. And if it's not, that's cool. We can recommend some other tools. But yeah, I'd recommend just signing up for a trial, having a crack, and then we'll reach out and make sure that you've got all the things you need.
And a very key word there is active client. If it's a client you do work for as a one-off, that's not an active client. It's active for that period of time and then it's deactivated.
Yep. Yeah, good call.
Perfect.
If you've got 20 clients that pay you every week, every month automatically, then that's an active client for essentially the whole year or the time that the proposal is active. But yeah, if you got like sort of fluctuating clients throughout the year coming and going, then it's actually a good solution because you can sort of flex it around a bit. So
And $39 is what, half an hour for one client?
yeah, exactly. Good way to look at it. So yeah, then the solo plan, I think there's every single person on this call is probably keen on the solo plan based on the size of your business. But if you are a little bit bigger, then we've got some solutions there as well. But yeah, I think the main thing there is have a think about if you are personally the business owner, which is probably most people here. I know you, Kylie, you're not, but I'm sure you deal with the business owners a lot in terms of efficiencies. If you're the business owner or you're working with clients and you're the one doing proposals, you're the one doing sort of compliance, you're the one chasing payments. If you've got any debtors that are outstanding at the moment and you're sick of chasing them up, then I think it's time to have a look at something like Ignition to help you clean that up and take that summer holiday. I'm going to come back to that one, Brooke, all the time. Can you tell them?
We've
Yes,
never been able
Kathy,
to
you can go
do
from core to solo.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd answer that because I know that Brooke was mentioning to other people that yes, you can drop down from core to solo.
I'd rather you drop down to the right plan
Mm.
and stick with us, and we'll make sure you get the most efficiency out of it, than not get any value from the next plan up. So, yeah, reach out to us if you want. We can do that.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. But of course, if you have any questions, you can send us, you can connect with Brooke, you can connect with Brendan, and we'll have this as a recording as well on the YouTube channel for you on the Bookkeepers Support YouTube channel. So thank you very much, Michelle and Brendan and Brooke. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute wonderful conversation. I have
That
enjoyed
was so much fun. I much prefer webinars like this than lots
Me
of
too.
slides.
More of
This
these.
is great.
I hope you all had a good time too. That was fantastic. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate your hosting.
Thank you all guys, and yeah, have a wonderful weekend ahead. Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, everyone.